And here we are going to talk about the digital platform for farmers. So it's about the digital future of the farmers, I would rather put it that way. It's quite an interesting topic because we started to talk about the farmers' digital future together with Biocrop and together with Wouter. It has been a kind of almost a 2 years journey, I would say. And I leave it to Wouter to head start on the business context around it, and we kind of go into the journey approach and some of the solution constructs, how we actually got to this stage of engaging with farmers, uh, more from moving from a kind of seed seller into a kind of engagement partner for the farmers, I would put it that way. And towards the end, we will also touch upon some of the Liferay components and solution constructs around. Yeah. Over to Wouter.
Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about the business background. So my role within Bayer Crop Science is a commercial business architect. It sounds like a nice mouthful, but it's really being the business partner within IT. So I'm partnering with the business to gather the IT requirements and then make sure that whatever the business wants, that we build that. Um, Maybe first a little bit about Bayer Crop Science. So most of you will know Bayer as more as a pharmaceutical company or a consumer products company. What you may not know is that it also has a big agricultural component. So it's actually one of the biggest agricultural companies in the world, especially after the takeover of Monsanto a few months ago. So yeah, that's actually the space where I work in and where we did this project. So to set the business background a little bit. So farmers, as you know, play a very important role. What you may not know is that they take every year they need to take a lot of very difficult decisions. We count them always as 40 major decisions every year they need to take to optimize their yield to produce the crops that feed us in the end. So what can you think about for the 40 decisions? You can think about, okay, what crop do I plant? What is the hybrid within that crop that I want to plant? When do I plant my crop? What do I irrigate my crop and how often? Do I use herbicides? Do I use pesticides? Do I use any other crop protection products? And then of course you go when you move towards harvest is when do I harvest and yeah, those kind of decisions. Um, when they take those decisions, they have a lot of aspects to weigh. So of course the economic aspect is very important for them because they need to earn money. But I don't think we should forget that they are also very conscious about their environment and especially the sustainable part of their business because they don't want to optimize their yield for this year only, but also towards the future. And this is actually where a company like Bayer Crop Science comes in. We try to help them with what we call tailored solutions in this space. And to do this, we offer three types of products. So we have the seeds and traits, as you see at the top, which is basically the genetics of the seeds. Then the crop protection products, and also since a number of years, digital technologies based on a lot of data science, in which we help farmers make the right decisions. Moving on, a quick look at our product portfolio. I don't want to spend a lot of time here. So we offer brands of seeds. So basically, we sell bags of seeds that we breed that have different characteristics and that fit different types of environments of the farmer. Then we have crop protection products. Here you can think about disease control products, pesticides, herbicides, but also biologicals. It's a very up and coming part. Acceleron, for example, you see here. It's really a coating around the seed that we apply and that protects the seed against and the crop against specific pests and diseases. And then the thing that's really growing fast is digital farming. We have a separate business unit called Climate Corporation, which is only involved in data science, building platforms for farmers that they can use to help them get more visibility on their crops. Now I want to zoom into the product actually, where what we built here in for Dekalb. So you see, Dekalb is one of our seed brands. Um, Dekalb is actually the biggest seed brand that we have here in Europe. Through this, um, we offer corn seeds and oilseed rape seeds, and yeah, this is really one of our major products that we sell in Europe at least. So around this Dekalb, we started thinking about, okay, we need to not only offer seeds to our customers, because it's important that they maximize whatever they can get out of the seeds. So our marketing organization at first started thinking, okay, how are we going to position this? And that's how they come up with the Dekalb Smart brand. Well, I cannot call it a brand name, but let's say moniker. Um, so Dekalb Smart is really a suite of integrated solutions built around our seeds that will help farmers maximize their yield. To easily explain it, I can show this graph. So basically, the Dekalb seeds itself, we aim to breed them as, let's say, trying to maximize the yield that we can achieve. Of course, in a certain environment, it's almost not possible to reach the absolute maximum that you would have in a controlled environment. You have to deal with weather, you have to deal with diseases and pests. So that's where the Dekalb Smart concept comes in. So we would like to add solutions to the seeds in which we are trying to maximize the yield for the farmer under the present conditions that he faces. So that's let's say the high level concept of Dekalb Smart. One of the solutions that fall under Dekalb Smart is the Dekalb Smart Digital solution, and that's what the topic of today. So we have built a digital solution on the Liferay platform with a number of solutions that help the farmer in his decision making and in his crop, let's say, monitoring. So the three main functionalities that we are offering, I can discuss. So the first one is it allows each farmer to build a plan for their farm in the coming year. So he can basically indicate the fields that he has, indicate which hybrid he wants to use he wants to plant, and also he can get a recommendation based on his field location. And on the hybrid that he has selected, on the seed the density that he wants to plant. The density is, okay, how far are the plants from each other? And based on tests that we have done internally, we know exactly what the optimal setup is for each hybrid in the different soil types, for example. So that's how we give the farmer advice how to maximize the yield of his fields. Then once he has planted his crop, we have another functionality that helps him monitor the health of his crop. We call it the field health advisor, and this is based on satellite images and an algorithm that has been developed first by a small external company, but has since been taken over by our climate corporation business unit. And they basically, with the help of satellite data and an algorithm, they are able to recognize with, let's say, satellite images that are taken about a week apart. They can look at, let's say, the condition of the crop and can spot from, let's say, from I don't know how many kilometers up. They can see whether there's a variance in the crop and see if there's potential problems with the crop in the field. Simply, when the user looks at the fields in this sense, he can see that he can see black spots, for example, and green spots. Green is good, black is bad, obviously. And then we have a third functionality, which is the irrigation functionality, and this does a number of things. In the basic sense, it does more or less the same as the field health functionality, but it can calculate more or less the water use of the crop, let's say, during the growing season. So how this works is in the beginning of the season, the crop doesn't use a lot of water because it's small and it doesn't have very deep roots yet, so it can't really extract a lot of water from the soil. But once the plant grows, it will start using more and more water until it reaches full maturity, and then the water use will go down again. So there's an algorithm here that we use to that we present to the farmers and that they can monitor. And it also shows satellite data. So every 6 by 6 meters, we will show a pixel, and based on that pixel, you can also see on a more detailed level what areas of his fields use more or less water. So we have launched this solution in 9 countries right now, mostly in Southern Europe, because those are the main irrigation areas in Europe for our crops, and also in some Eastern European countries. I think I'll now hand over
Yep.
to Madhu for the approach.
Thanks, Wouter. So like I said in the beginning, it has been a kind of 2 years journey in building this product. So I'm going to touch upon like where we started this journey, right? So that would give a little more context before I kind of dive into the solution components and the constructs. So the initial ask from Wouter and team was, can we have a kind of simple portal system to begin with, which would enable the farmers to mark their fields, allowing them to kind of get or fetch information through certain third-party integration on the field health and the irrigation health and the irrigation plan. Eventually, it so happened that we, together with Bayer Crop, did a kind of extensive journey. We went through extensive journey, which I will touch upon shortly, which resulted in some of these screens that you actually get to see. So it all started with a very simple ask, as I said, but over a point of time, we together as a partner discovered that there is a need for concept to be conceived, ideated, prototype before it could actually become a product by itself. So that is where we started doing this whole concept conception in the collaboratory of Cognizant in Amsterdam, followed by a quality to research. So when I say that, it is conducted with empathetic research mode, where we kind of look into the human-centric ideas and identifying the potential opportunities and the business potentials, where we would be able to kind of tap into the behavior of the users, identifying the needs and challenges of the end users, in this case, farmers. So our heuristic research team ended up meeting the farmers in the fields of Spain, and I did a kind of insight and strategy research by analyzing the requirements, analyzing the needs and challenges of these farmers, of what they actually need. And then we did conduct some design thinking workshops where we were able to translate these needs and challenges more into kind of user experience designs. So that resulted in the whole design approach on this, the previous screen that you get to see. And finally, like I said, a human-centric design approach is where we kind of understand the needs, challenges of the users, synthesize those requirements and needs, and finally come up with a most viable product and create this whole product roadmap for Dekalb Smart in this case, resulting in an agile DevOps development where we were able to also kind of contribute, bringing in the DevOps methodology of automation build, deployment, and test automations too. And in addition to that, we were able to bring in the advanced analytics and the machine learning techniques on empirical data set in order to bring in more kind of marketing strategy. And apart from that, we were also able to kind of produce videos and animations and also some amount of tutorial for the farmers in order to see how to use the system. And those are more of the marketing strategy ideas that was actually conceived well and produced. And finally, we were also able to kind of bring in this commerce team engaged in payment and transaction of this. So this was more kind of commercialized to a particular set of users. And we didn't stop there. So we also realized that there is a need for these farmers to be supported in their local languages. So we started to provide support in Portuguese, Spanish, and Italian from one of our nearshore centers in Spain. So this has been a kind of a journey, an approach that we have kind of adopted for this whole product evolution across an Agile Scrum methodology. This is just more for the reference. I know some of the folks sitting here are developers and technology specialists. So this is just to give you a kind of glimpse view in terms of how the architecture was kind of conceived right from the data layer and the business layer, where we use the out-of-the-box features of the ORM, which is the service builder, in order for all the persistent layer transaction. And above that is a presentation layer, where we had brought in all the necessary Liferay interface components, along with the out-of-the-box features of the Liferay market plugins. And there are also multiple field reports like water, health, and virtual probe reports that we were able to kind of generate. On top of that comes the whole user interface layer. So in terms of the solution construct, I'm going to touch upon some of the very key or few solution constructs which has become the key components of the whole product. And like Wouter said, yes, the product supports 9 countries, and it is completely localized, and it uses the out-of-the-box language features of Liferay, and there is a single instance of this Dekalb portal, which actually leverages for the whole country localization across 9. And some of them are Southern European countries, and some of them are Eastern European countries. And in terms of the field data from weather station, so imagine the farmers have to actually plot the field coordinates. So it is a kind of user interface layer that we are able to build using the Leaflet API sitting on top of Liferay with an API integration, allowing the farmers to kind of plot the exact coordinates. And these coordinates are then sent to the HydroBio, which is a third party, which is able to kind of feed in back a base 64 image of these fields, and through the REST-based API, REST-based service calls. And this is how the field data from weather station, which is HydroBio, was actually being received. And there was also a technical challenge that I remember Bishwa was mentioning about, where these 64 base images which was received from HydroBio occupied a lot of storage. And hence, we have to actually look at some alternate ways in order to see how to actually manage the storage of these images, because these were very high resolution images, and these were kind of run in night batch jobs. And it became technically cumbersome in order to manage these, but there was some good workaround that we were able to identify when we kind of moved this into cloud. And crop plan syncing with SFDC. So this became one of the another critical important feature, where the crop plans that are being kind of created are using the Liferay document management system features. And these crop plans, in terms of the field data, are then kind of integrated with the SFDC, and that is through the REST-based API, REST-based services. And finally, the advisor impersonation. So the farmers were kind of impersonated by the field advisors. When I say so, it is very hard to depend or wait for the farmers. It's rather, it is important to enable them and help them. So the advisor group of the Bayer crop were kind of given the feature to impersonate the farmers' access rights. So, and hence they were able to kind of create the necessary features around that, for which we use the Liferay impersonation feature and the permission checking mechanism. And that apart, there was another user group called as the advisor group, the advisor manager group. So these manager group were given the view rights only. So there again, we were able to kind of have the necessary access control in order to control this impersonation using the Liferay feature. And the next topic is around some of the solution construct or the components of Liferay. How did we leverage them? To begin with taxonomy. Taxonomy, it has been a very complex taxonomy, hierarchical taxonomy, especially to talk about the product packages for the users and the crop plans, which were kind of country dependent across the 9 countries, and also the yield of these crop plans, which are also depending for which are kind of different for different countries. So these were kind of the taxonomy that was created using the taxonomy classification of Liferay, the catalog features of Liferay, and then authentication. We kind of use the simple out-of-the-box features of authentication of Liferay, enabling the users to log in. And the content and DMS, here we again use the Liferay DMS features, because the kind of resources components that we are talking about here are the data, images itself, and the links, the page, the content. So these were kind of created, managed, and displayed using the Liferay's content and document management system. And like I mentioned before, Service Builder was more used in the to kind of provide a persistent layer in terms of the integration with the backend database, and which is using the out-of-the-box features of Liferay ORM. The audit capabilities, it was also important to kind of track, trace the audit of users logging in and making any kind of changes or update or delete. And hence, we tried using the audit capabilities of Liferay. And role-based access, like I mentioned before, is there were 4 different user groups, primarily the farmers, the advisor group, the manager group, and the administrators. So it is very key that we actually kind of use the role-based access services of Liferay in order to manage the access permissions. And here we also use the permission checker. Internationalization, it is again the out-of-the-box features of the language and the localization capabilities of Liferay. And Liferay email services, it is using the Amazon SES service. It's an integration through Amazon SES where the kind of email notifications were actually sent out. And at last, yeah, so this is in summary, right, in terms of what are the key components of Liferay that were used around this whole journey. And it is important to say, yes, we started this journey long back, and now we are on Liferay 6.2, cloud enabled on AWS. It's a kind of complete hosted managed services. And language support provided from the Nearshore Center for the 3 primary languages that I spoke about. And it's a complete insight-driven research. Finally, the outcome in terms of business outcome, number 1. So, like I said in the beginning, we kind of, together with Wouter and team, we were able to move this whole journey from enabling Bayer Crop, not just by selling seeds, but to become a kind of engagement partner for the farmers. It became a kind of end-to-end service being offered. And number 2, what it means is we were able to enable tracking the crop health using the irrigation planning. Number 2, by kind of measuring the crop health using the satellite images, because these are the images which would actually be able to plot whether these fields are kind of healthy or not. And at last is how to make this most cost efficient and productive through these commerce mechanisms. So that is pretty much Liferay, because we started with a kind of test and trial. I had told Kulver about this, but eventually this has become a good experience platform for the Dekalb Smart. So, Wouter, maybe would you like to summarize?
Yeah, maybe to summarize the impact that this solution has had. So we signed up more than 2,500 farmers until now. I think this year we're now getting to the new campaign, as we call it. So I expect this number to quite significantly grow over the coming months. 125,000 hectares in the system. And also from a business impact perspective, we see a number of things. So for the farmer, we see an impact on the cost savings that they can achieve by using less water and less energy, and also by, in some cases, a yield improvement, because that's also very important. We have been able to monitor by doing some tests with a number of farmers. For our company itself, this has been a big help in capturing market share, because we really have a different message than our competitors. So that's really where this solution really brought a lot of value for us. Even not only it helped us create more value with existing customers, but we also managed to reach out to a lot of new customers because of this. And I think last but not least, we are trying to position ourselves as a very innovative company, and that's also one thing that really helped this solution helped achieve. So I think that's our story.
Yeah.
We have now how many? Yeah, we have 6 minutes for
5
questions.
5 minutes for questions, and in summary, it's a kind of Uber-like platform for farmers. Yeah. Lights on?
I don't know what that is. Questions?
All right, thanks.
Wow.
It works.
It does work. Yeah, so a quick question. Perhaps you mentioned it in your presentation, but where did you get the satellite images from?
So the satellite images, were bought by our external partner, but they have had contracts with like major satellite image providers like Airbus. There's a few others.
Yeah,
Sentinel.
it can't be typical Google images, right? They have to be much more detailed, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's a few big players in this space, and I think our external provider had contracts with a number of them.
And I should say that was the first initial challenging part in terms of building that integration, receiving these images. Like I said, somewhere in the between, we had to run really night jobs after receiving these base 64 images, and try to see like how to make it more performance efficient.
Yeah. Maybe funny about satellite images. Satellite images we found out are very dependent on the weather. So we sometimes, especially in the early part of the season, in April, May, especially in certain areas like northern Italy, it can get very cloudy. And if it's cloudy and the satellite comes over, which happens, satellite on average comes over the same area every, I would say, two to 3 days. But if there's a cloud cover for a number of days, then satellite images don't help you so much. So a lot of the work that we did was also expectation management with our users, because they were expecting maybe satellite image or new image to come in every 2 or 3 days. But when we explained, okay, we're very dependent on cloud cover, and they can see it themselves. So if we cannot deliver, if we could not deliver satellite images, then they understood because they had seen the weather. But that's something to keep in mind if you have a solution like this. Other questions?
I'm sorry.
Wow.
Is there a mobile component? I can imagine farmers are out there in the field and they need to make 40 decisions. Do they do that behind a desk or when they're on the truck in the field?
Yeah, it's now basically only a web application, which is indeed sometimes a challenge for farmers, especially being outside in some remote areas in Europe. The connectivity that you get is not always very good. Until now, we have not created an offline application. That is something we are thinking about.
May I suggest you investigate Liferay screens?
Yeah, so it is definitely something we're thinking about, but it's until now we decided to keep it as a web-based application only.
The app is available on the App Store. Can we find it?
Yeah, so we have also, last year we also launched a sort of hybrid app, which is still dependent on connectivity, unfortunately, but it was for us an easy way to make the solution more accessible for our users. As you may know, or a lot of farmers are not very tech savvy, so even doing something simple as going to a website and logging in is for them already quite challenging sometimes. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible. Most of them have a smartphone; they know how to use apps, so we also made it available in the app. But it's a hybrid app. It's not a fully native experience. It is available in the App Store, not here in the Netherlands, because we don't offer the solution here in the Netherlands. But if you go to the southern European countries, you can find it.
You mentioned that you are using the mobile SDK also, right?
Mobile SDK?
Yeah, I was basically just wondering, how long did it take you to go from ideation to, well, the product you have right now, or are you still in development phase? I mean, development, of course, is always ongoing, but until you had the MVP.
Yeah. So
Let me think. So this was last year. We started
for the Dekalb Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did the ideation over the summer.
Yeah.
And then it took us, I think,
End of the year.
I think it was like 4 months.
Yeah, 4 months
from the end of the ideation to the launch of the MVP.
Yeah. So it was the first initial month spent also on the fields of the farmers. I spoke about how did we kind of gather the needs, challenges, synthesize the requirements, come back into a collaboratory, do the whole ideation together with our business partners, and in terms of developing the MVP towards a prototype and combining with the design thinking approach. So that took 3 to 4 months time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madhu, and thank you, Wouter.
Thank you everyone for your patience.
And